live. Guys,
Awesome.
welcome. Summera, we persevered. We did it together
Yes.
with the powers of the internet on our side. Thank you so much for joining. Guys, we're back with another Play It Forward with Summera Howell, filmmaker of Avowed. And she was played it forward by Emily Monti, American-born filmmaker living in Germany. And Summera is joining us from Los Angeles today. Summera, thank you so much for joining us. And thank you for your patience. And it's great to have you on our show. Summera is the star and director of Avowed, which is a smart, sweet, sincere picture. And we're glad to have you on the show. So thanks again for joining us. And I'm sure you probably want to give due credit to your co-filmmakers.
Absolutely. Where would we be without my co-writer, Chris Gebhardt, and without my producer, Sharif Matar? Also super lucky to have an incredibly talented DP in Madeline Berger. And then my co-stars, Yvonne Cole, June Carroll, and Brian Dilbeck. So that, without them, there would be no movie. So.
And you got a great all-star cast. I mean, everybody was awesome. Really high quality picture, very professional. We're going to just roll right into the show. You know, the format as 3 questions. And, you know, what we're trying to get at here on the show is that we are filmmakers speaking to filmmakers, and we just want a really sincere, no unpretentious talk about what motivates us to do what we do, why we do it on a really emotive level. And, you know, starting with that first, why this film? Why did you make this picture? Why did you want to go into this? What motivated you to spend how much time, how much money, and how much sweat and hard work making it? Why?
There are so many whys, so I'm just going to start with one and kind of segue into all the other whys.
Cool.
The first why that I think is really important, which wasn't necessarily like the inspiration why, but definitely became a driving force, is that do you know what America's largest minority is?
America's largest, I have no idea. I could only guess. Is it the disabled?
It is the disabled, and they're the least represented. So the fact that, well, the fact that not only there's this huge subsection of not only the American population, but the global population that's almost never represented on screen, but also that that's a minority that any one of us could join at any moment is like such a fascinating, it's just absolutely fascinating to me that I don't know if it's just sort of like our primal fear of being different or anything like that. And which I think is really great that they've sort of reclaimed this phrase in differently abled instead of disabled.
Right. That's great.
Yeah. But that we choose to ignore this like huge section of the population. And I find that like just really compelling that we don't pay attention to those people. And especially people who have some sort of chronic condition that makes them live in a long-term care facility where we in our daily lives may literally never ever encounter anyone like that.
Mm.
And that they live their entire lives in beds being cared for, and that every day around the world there are people, mostly women, caring for these other people that society has chosen to shut away and ignore. And I
Yeah,
just love how, yeah, go ahead.
that's ridiculous. But first, please finish your thought. You just wanted to what?
Oh, and I just wanted to sort of tell the story of an unseen community. And I thought, and I had already had the premise of nuns in it because it sort of came as like a complete image. But I love the idea too that nuns are also an unseen community, because most nuns that you would encounter in your day-to-day life may not be wearing a habit, so you wouldn't know they were nuns unless they told
Mm.
you. And then other kinds of nuns who are more traditional live in convents or communities where you probably wouldn't see them in your day-to-day life either. So it's sort of like 2 unseen communities enmeshing, and that like don't necessarily have anything in common, except that their vocations have drawn them together, or its circumstances have drawn them together.
Very cool. You've got a lot of very nice literary kind of mirroring devices happening in the film that are really smart and clever. So that, you know, plays out quite nicely with the nun and the disabled. And I get it now. That's a great connection. Do you know about how many disabled make up this percentage of minority in terms of, yeah, percent or population number?
It would be really great if I had that number. I'm sure I could Google it really quickly. I feel like in order to write this film, Chris and I took a disability studies course at UCLA last summer, and I feel like our professor would be kind of like, "Why don't you know that number?" Oops.
Well, let's look it up. Let's go to the power of the internet, and I'll look it up right now. How many disabled Americans are there? All right. Without further ado, we're going to go search how many disabled Americans are there. And survey says there are 489 million people, or 19.4%. These are non-institutionalized civilians have a disability. An estimated 24.1 million have people have a severe disability. So that sounds like institutionalized. An estimated 34.2 million, or 17.5%, have a functional limitation. So we're looking at between 48.9, almost 50 million, 50 to 25 million Americans.
Yeah.
50 non-institutionalized and 25 severe disability. So that's according to the U.S. Census Bureau of 92. It'd be interesting to see what the latest facts are on that. So, you know, if anybody knows, please send it in. But, you know, so why is it, so going back, you know, there's this Japanese technique, a lean methodology, and they ask why 5 times to get to the real why.
That
So
like
what's that?
that sounds like my nephew.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, totally. Is he about 2 years old?
He's 6 years old.
Oh, he's 6. Okay, there you have it. So, you know, so that's, why is that a passion of yours? Like, did you have a personal connection?
You know,
Did something happen?
like no, not in a like direct one-to-one correlation. There's no one in my life that has that intense of a chronic disability. I certainly know people who have conditions like lupus or multiple sclerosis or fibromyalgia, but nobody who has, until making this film, no one, certainly no one that had like a mitochondrial disorder like we portray in the film.
Mm-hmm.
I have no personal experience with that whatsoever. So yeah, so I don't know that there's a personal why in that reason. I think what I found compelling from sort of that, like with the nun, the religious perspective, is someone who has lived a life where they aren't aware of other people and they're totally isolated and interior like that. I think is challenging for any of us to accept. I think that's really hard because, you know, as humans, we like to empathize and put ourselves in other people's shoes, but to put yourself in the position of you just don't even know that there are other people, like that is such an intense thing to think about. And you wouldn't even have developed these kinds of concepts of language and identity of self and all of this stuff. And like, what do you even know? What is your awareness? And how challenging that would be for someone whose belief structure puts in place a very rigid idea about, you know, the dignity of every human person and the soul and things like that, and how much of a direct challenge that would be, especially like the concept of free will. Like, how could someone like Robin, our character in the film, even have free will? And how is Sister Giles gonna kind of register that within herself? And so I think what I find really interesting is, you know, to interact with someone on that level of I don't even know a good way to say this, but who has a condition like that and who has not developed past infancy, is a challenge for anybody. But how much more of a challenge is it when it challenges your beliefs? And so that, I think, is really compelling, to create a character for whom meeting someone like that doesn't just make her feel personally uncomfortable, which of course is like, you know, a natural reaction because we put ourselves in that position to be like, oh, what if it's me? But that it also literally challenges the decision that she's making about how she's going to live every moment of her life. So that sort of makes it like the most dramatic conflict to me, I think. So.
Well, that's the pivotal question, the climactic question of the movie that your character comes to and says, you know, do we know everybody has, how do we know if everybody has a soul? And
Yeah.
the nun, you know, the devout Catholic woman says, well, we don't, we just trust. And I think, you know, that's interesting to have that faith really is at the center of existence in this question of what is our life, what would life be like without any connection, without completely the lack of the ability to make human connection, and what really is at the core of our lives. And it's, you know, thinking about what we're doing right now in social media and the just the proliferation of these devices that connect us. I mean, we can't get connected enough in our lives. You know, there's new platforms coming out and new ways, you know, virtual reality now, right, is coming out. It's like another way to connect to something greater than ourselves, you know? And, you know, oops, Summera, we just lost your video. Probably buffer and come back.
Okay.
But the question to all that is, like, I guess, what's the question in there? To me, that's interesting is like, what do you think of all that in connection to the title of your movie, Avowed?
Do you have me back yet?
Yes, you're back. We definitely have your audio, and I think if you keep talking.
I'm trying to, and actually somebody called me and so my screen disappeared.
Oh, okay.
And now I wonder if I press this, if it'll just bring me back in. Couldn't join calls. Sorry, everyone watching.
Nah, that's all right. I mean, we do have audio and.
Okay. All right. There. I think that worked. Yeah.
Yes, you're back.
Hey. Okay. So the title. Okay. So actually the title, that's super. Okay. So two things. Firstly, I kind of had like a little epiphany while you were talking just a second ago. And I sort of realized that, in a way, Robin is sort of an externalization of God in that, you know, you can pray and feel like no one's listening. And you know what I mean? Like that, you were talking about communication.
That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah. You know what I mean?
That's
so
awesome.
like literally there
You
is
just had that epiphany right now?
What? I just thought about that right now. Yeah.
That is awesome. That's why we make art, you know?
Yeah.
Because you make it and then you're just like, holy shit. That's what that means.
Yeah. I just realized that, like,
that's
right
awesome.
now. Which maybe I should have realized that when, like, back when we were writing the script or
no
something.
way. No way. No, right now is the time. right
now. Live to the internet.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I think you're dead on. I think you're dead on. Is anybody in there? Is anybody out there? That's the question.
Exactly. And that's, I think, it kind of creates this like externalization of that.
Absolutely.
Which was a huge problem for us because we kept bringing up the problem of like, we're making a film. How do we externalize a completely internal problem? And we pushed ourselves. We had some challenges. I'm not sure that we 1000% did it to the best of it. I'm sure we didn't. I'm sure there's a better way to do it than we did, but we did what we did. And I think,
I love that, Summera. That's awesome. That's so brave of you to say and honest. You know, I applaud that. That's awesome.
People will tell you I specialize in honest.
Oh yeah, that's pretty cool. That's very cool. I'm of that ilk myself. I think you get a couple of people to back that up too. My wife included. That's awesome, Summera. So you know what's interesting to me? What do you think of this? The whole avowed thing, because avowed, if you look up the definition of it, right, which I did, is openly admit or acknowledge something, right? Are you there, Summera?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you're back.
Okay. All right. Hopefully now it's back to both. Yes?
Yes.
Great.
Did you get
Okay.
another call?
Yeah. So yes, to avow is to openly acknowledge or something. And the best part about our title is that's not what we shot the film under. We shot the film under the name Afflicted, which was meant to be about really every character in some way. But I'd always felt a little uncomfortable with it in that I didn't want the differently abled community to think that it referred solely to Robin. And even though that's not my intention, like people sometimes will assume things you don't mean, and I didn't love that because I certainly am not out to offend anybody. And you know, you're probably
Right,
always
of
going
course.
to, but
Of
I'm not
course.
out to do that. The other thing is, I thought The Afflicted sounded like a horror film, and I was just
Right.
like waiting for someone to pop out somewhere.
Right, right. Well, you do have the bird coming out of the cage, so.
Yeah, exactly. So
Right.
Sharif and Chris and I were sitting around kind of like working on a final polish, and I think we were registering the film for something, like maybe we were putting it on without a box, I don't remember. And then we were just like, well, how do we feel about the title? And we're like, we don't know. And we just started like like just bouncing ideas off for titles, and there were some like delirious, hilarious suggestions that I wish I
Oh
could
yeah,
remember.
what was one of those?
I don't remember them, but I feel
Okay.
like they were like something like so cheesy that you're just
Okay.
like it's something like God speaks or just something obnoxious and like
Right.
totally like not a good one or like
Okay.
yeah.
Sounds like it's late at night slapstick kind of mood.
It totally was. It was one of those like you were just putting forth titles as jokes at that point.
Right, right. What's the worst title you can think of?
Yeah, but then I'm pretty sure it was Sharif who came up with Avowed, and I think maybe it was a vow, and then we were like, how about Avowed or Avowal, and then we were like, okay, Avowed, and then we just sort of like let it sit for maybe 2 days, and then we were like, you know what, Avowed, yes, that works, and I think it is better for the film. I like it much better as Avowed than Afflicted.
Because it's an interesting statement. I mean, it's really kind of saying like you've got to make a stand. Wherever the question is and whatever the answer is, we won't know, but you got to make a stand one way or another.
Yes, and what I like about that is that Sister Giles starts the film thinking she totally is Avowed, like thinking she's like, yeah, I got this. I'm gonna be a nun. I'm gonna be the best nun ever, and she's like totally like 1000% in until the absolute first hard thing she's ever really had to deal with in her life hits her full steam ahead, and she's like, oh, maybe I don't know anything about anything. And in that way, even though, you know, I think for most millennials, the idea of becoming a nun is probably the like furthest thing from sounding relatable. But I think she has a very typical coming of age problem, which is
of course,
you think you know everything, and then some really big thing shakes you to your foundations, and you're like, actually, I've walked around my whole life thinking I so know it all, and I don't. I know nothing.
And so. The best thing that could happen, you know, obviously two things. Like one, you come out of it alive and okay and safe, and the other thing is that it happens early because you know how many people are walking around in their lives till later in their years, and you know they need a moment like that, right, to humble them. So yeah, I mean, that's a powerful moment, and that moment is certainly relatable to all, you know, people of any age really out there. So I should get on to the second question because we haven't even really gotten to the second question.
Okay.
Okay.
Hit me with-
All right. The second question is, oh, well, you know what? I think we have gotten to the second question actually. The second question is, what did you want to say? And I think we've really just been talking about that. So, you know, we pretty much covered it. Was there anything else that you might want to add to it in terms of what did you want to say?
Yeah, I think there's one more thing. The film was inspired by, I knew I was applying to this program, and I was thinking to myself, and the question they asked is to make a film about liberty.
Liberty?
And liberty. And they totally meant, I would like to like just put a disclaimer on this. They totally, in general, were thinking of like civil liberties. And I knew that, and like really put this in knowing it was a huge gamble. But I sort of thought, like, what would be, because I've made a couple other social justice films and sort of said things that I have to say about other things that are relevant at this moment. And I thought, like, what would be really liberating for me in this moment? And it's hard to be an artist. Like, I don't say that. I'm sure everyone who is relates to that. But I feel like being an artist means that you constantly are grappling with so much self-doubt, because the world is not, in general, like they may be applauding you, but they're not really supporting you. Especially in America, it's like not an easy road, especially financially. And so every time you look at your checkbook, or I don't look at a checkbook because I'm a millennial, but you look at your bank statement.
Totally get it.
Yeah, and it's like you're perilously close. There's totally this inner dialogue of like, what am I doing? Like, I could have a house if I lived in the Midwest. I could have like a stable job, or kind of any of that stuff. And so the idea of like being free from doubt was like what spoke to me. So I was letting all that kind of fuzz around in the back of my mind. And I went to sleep, and I woke up one morning with this image of a nun cradling someone who doesn't know that she's there. And I just thought, wow, that is such a powerful, powerful thing. The idea of like a love so unconditional that it doesn't even matter if someone knows it's happening.
You said a nun cradling somebody who doesn't know that she's there?
Yeah, that the nun is there.
Aha, gotcha.
Yes. So that was sort of kind of the inspiration, was sort of like the launching off point from which everything else came.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's great. That's a very touching, inspiring image. That's awesome. Cool. Well, thanks for sharing that.
Sure.
Totally. All right. So we'll get down to last but not least. Since you've made this film, what has changed for you?
Okay, here's a total honest one. So I made this film, and then about a month later, I shot a TV show that I can't legally name yet, but will be airing in about 2 weeks on a certain station formerly known for like youth culture and rock and roll, but now which does real shows, wink. And it may or may not be a show that's a reboot of a movie from the 80s that isn't about vampires, but about something like them. I think that's about as much as I could say legally.
Far out. Congrats. Good for you.
Thank you. So I walked onto set that day and like walked into, like my trailer, and there's all my paperwork and my costumes and everything like that. And I like was happy for the job and happy for the money. And like, of course, it's like they treat you so nicely when you speak on a TV show. But I just couldn't help but feel like, man, I'm glad to be here, but I'm not excited or enthused about the project, because at the end of the day, it's like I'm there to deliver some plot information and then die, and that's it. And it's not going to affect anyone's life in a meaningful way. And some person, like there are tons of fans of the show who are just going to be appreciative that the show happened, but it doesn't feel like it has that same kind of like emotional or significant resonance. And so, so that was interesting. That was interesting to like walk into a professional situation that had like a much bigger budget than my film did, and still, just kind of be like, I missed Avowed. Like I was like, it made so much more of a difference to be playing this other character.
You're acting in this, you acted in this thing, not directed it.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I'm sure if I directed it, I would probably still feel that way on some level, but it would also be like way more all-encompassing than it would be to just, show up and act. Like it's
right. To deliver the plot point.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I know what I'm supposed to do. I'm a professional. I'll walk in,
Yeah, take your mark and get your cue and deliver your lines. Yeah, I hear you.
And you know, I mean, like, I did die, so I cared about like my character dying. Like, there's, you know, the character
Sure.
was like, shit, I don't want to die. Like, I hope I don't.
Right. You're a
So
pro.
there's,
You took it with pride.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But there was definitely a sense of like, this job feels like a paycheck more than it would have a month ago.
Yeah. That's cool. So what I get out of that is what changed for you is this perspective and working on a film like Avowed and having the emotional, intellectual, heart, soul, you know, and talking and, you know, talking about the subject matter of this connectivity and this, you know, what we were just riffing on with like how connectivity drives our lives, you know, that feeds us in a way that is as necessary as a paycheck.
It felt like such an incredible privilege to be able to give 100% of my creative energy and my
Yeah.
managerial skills into a project that was worthy of it.
100% of your creative energy, and what was that?
Managerial skills.
Into a project that
was completely worthy of it.
Completely worthy of it. Yeah, totally. That's awesome. That's awesome. And I'm so glad that, you know, you said that. I'm so glad that we've got this on air, on tape, on video, because that's such a powerful message to send to people out there there's so many millions of people out there like us in the world wrestling between commerce and soul and feeding which one, and how do you feed both? Because you have to, you know, and we are humans. We need both, right, in this state of existence. So I really, you know, thank you for sharing that message and championing that, because I think that's how, you know, you're saying, you know, being an artist, you don't have that reinforcement. Our culture isn't really like, yeah, go out there and suffer for your art, you know? I mean, and there's truth to that, because, you know, it's a fine line, being an artist and being a responsible citizen and making money. You gotta juggle both, you know?
Totally.
You know, so and it's not easy. It's not easy, but I think everybody in one way or another can really relate to that, because everybody has a passion about something, right? Whether it's making movies, you know, writing, or, you know, going out there and landscaping their garden, you know? So,
yeah,
I think
whenever you can turn your passion into profit, that's when you're
right.
You got it made.
That's the goal, and I think that's, you know, something that our generations have the sort of, you know, good fortune and opportunity to do. And I think as society more and more develops, you know, people are going to be more and more empowered to do that and supported to do that. You know?
Yeah.
Summera Howell, it is a pleasure to have you on the show. You rock. Thanks so much for being with us. Avowed, guys, is it, you know, what's the next step with Avowed? Is it like doing the festival thing?
It is in contention for some festivals, so we're waiting to see. We just had our premiere in Los Angeles at the Vista Theater in Silver Lake, which is a beautiful 1920s theater with like an Egyptian kind of theme, which was
Sweet.
Awesome.
Cool.
Yeah, it was. We are waiting to see where our next screenings will be. So we probably, I would say about a year of festivals from now, and then we'll probably put it on some kind of online digital streaming platform. But
Perfect.
for everybody, for everyone who's interested in following, you can follow me directly at, my handle is at Summera Howell. I'm sure my name's in the comments. You can Google me easily, Facebook. And then our film is facebook.com/avowedfilm. So you can follow us on either place and you'll get updates for sure.
Awesome, Summera. Thank you. And we'll be posting this and sharing it on Facebook. So, you know, everyone will have links and all that stuff. So thanks again, guys. Thank you for joining Play It Forward. Till next time, till we meet again. Summera, thank you. It was
Of course.
All right. Bye. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in this week. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe and leave us a like and or comment. It makes a big difference. Play It Forward is brought to you by Digipops, where we're building a community to put film and filmmaker discovery in your hands. Here, filmmakers and fans, the creative class, recognizes each other fairly and transparently through a community-curated film festival each quarter. It's coming soon. Thank you.